Hi, I'm Chester Nielsen. I'm talking about my show at Art 101 in Brooklyn. The theme is corners, which is a geometric space at the apex of a ceiling and two walls in private residences. So I began with a survey of photographs of corners in people's houses and then began to analyze that moment in a series of ways. The identity of the corner is quite interesting. It exists in its current time and place and in the past and future of architecture. And it also has a direct connection to the personality of the inhabitant. So there are several layers of interpolation that you can layer and analyze into the art. So my work is a series of processes based on that initial survey. So I started with the photographs and then breaking them down, cropping them to find the true identity, the cleanest, simplest identity of that corner. And then I proceeded to build models of those geometric forms, simplified to try to understand more about the identity of this particular specific time and space and volume. And then proceeded to paint the simple graphic form of specific instances. And then at the end of the process, I brought that simplification and that year of study back to the original photographs and overlaid the simplified painting on top of the photograph, which you may see later. The corner exists in two possible worlds: their place in the mind of the inhabitant and their place in the absolute. The bifurcation of the identity of the corner may be drastic, but it is important to note that they are distinct singular narratives that describe its existence and location. It is important to understand where in time and culture the corner is located in the absolute. Within the larger movement of a building lies the individual corner, and as the building is influenced and informed by context, history, and the weight of the future, so too is the corner. The personality of the inhabitant is embodied in the persistence of memory of the corner. However, it is not only the personality of the inhabitant that is on display, but also the personified emotions of the corner itself. The personification of the corner reflects our intense relationship with our surroundings and highlights our intimate notions of the nuances of our environment. Based on our collective understanding of the built world, we interpolate one's surroundings as reflections of their own personality. It can even be understood that, to a certain extent, one's intimate surroundings are a collection of individual notions that are both reflections and extensions of that personality. With an omnipresent point of view, the corner maintains a residual history of the emotions of the inhabitant, both present and past. The corner is the embodied memory of life lived. It is in part a physical definition of that life. The point of view of the survey is that of a single camera with a singular lens, a wholly different means of experiencing the corner than with your own two eyes. We see a simplified, flattened, and true view of the corner, one where the node of connection is at the center and is clearly defined, a single point. Unlike our own experiences, where the geometries of our surroundings are always at odds with the theories that govern them, these are images where the geometry is perfected and pure. It maintains its theoretical truth.
I'm Nicola Ginzel, and I'm here at Art 101 in Brooklyn and showing, or going to try to describe my work. And I've been taking for the past couple of years random ephemera and taking it and sewing, if you can, I don't know if you can go up closer, just transforming these paper bags and plastic bags and things just of daily life, a written mantra over here, and just taking things and sewing out the lines or the graphics and the text and symbols with the thread. So through this inductive process of using the thread, I'm deducing the object to its essence. So some of them, like this one over here, this Icelandic customs ticket becomes just this sort of like a small blue color field piece. The thread is covering the dark lines. So in a sense, I'm sort of erasing, or I feel like I'm erasing. I'm covering, but for me, I feel like I'm erasing, almost erasing sort of like an identity of something. So in 2009, I discovered that all these things that I had been embroidering, and that they were sort of like these printing plates, because the process in which I embroider it once through the piece, and then I embroider above through the actual line of the line of the thread. So it's actually a brocading technique. But the thread is raised, and through that raised through the raised thread, I had a surface actually to work with. And I started doing these prints off of the objects that I transformed, or the two-dimensional objects that I transformed. This is really the first time I've shown any rubbings or frottages, would be the correct description. And this process, as I said, started in 2009 and really just blossomed, where you can see here, it's a really nice clear connection where this has been taken to create this image. So all of these things that exist here that look like scrolls are created through the rubbings of my embroidered pieces. Some of them have layers already. Underneath this one, there's a graphite layer that was first placed there, that was a rubbing off of another piece. And just as I am taking the actual objects that I start with, the source, that there's these random things from every day, the same thing is that these are just these remnants that also have a story from every day, or of my own personal life. And I'm taking these fragments and placing them then together. Paper napkin, or it isn't paper napkin, with printed tulips on it, and it went through many, many different processes, where I was using gold paint and ink, and then in the end I did a rubbing off of a Fruity Snacks, a Kellogg's Fruity Snacks wrapper, very intricate. And then I embroidered also some fabric onto there as well. These pieces here that are against the wall are all can be seen two-sided, and are actually older than those pieces on the wall, the monochromatic fragments, as I call them. These started in 2008, and in 2008. And I then started flipping them around and worked also on the other side of it. This belongs actually to a series called Gold Fragments. And I ended up, it's an M&M wrapper that ended up getting so embellished that I couldn't handle it. So I flipped it on the other side. I cut it in half. I flipped it on the other side, and that's when I started working on these other sides. So for me, these are very transitional pieces, and I really like the way they are on the wall here, very much like samples again, like specimens. the specimens that are used to create these pieces, which are sort of shown as scrolls or as writing. It's a Trident wrapper from Trident gum, and you can see the rubbing very nice and clear on this piece over here. I'm going to bring you over here. So this is the rubbing that is off of the Trident wrapper here. And here this correlates together. This is the rubbing off of this piece. This is a crown bolt package. And this piece that I did the print on is from a cafe. It's a package or a bag from a cafe. So things are all coming from different places. I think of it as sort of this Western refuse, which is revered to Eastern thought. So I sort of think of these as scrolls or like manuscripts, writing, and I guess my interest in language or writing from the beginning of when we used to communicate with symbols to where we communicate now with written language, and how there was much more of the brain used when we were communicating with symbols, or intuitive side of the brain being used, as opposed to now where it's much more conceptual, or also the more masculine side of the brain with the language. Anyway, it's sort of something that drives me with the work. So these are rubbings off of the Fruity Snacks wrapper, which is in another line. Some of those take a month to embroider. It has the actual wrapper in it, or transformed ephemera, I should say, because I'm not only doing wrappers. So this was a Fruity Snacks wrapper. Part of it's here, and part of it's here, that I've broken up. And then I've done the rubbings that show up on these blocks from this piece as well. And this is a remnant from this is a leather remnant and actually piece of a chair. And these have layers of rubbings in them.